What's going on, guys? It's Fight Season MMA, and today I want to make a video that is long overdue. I want to make a video talking about the top 10 greatest knockouts in UFC history. These are the most star-studded moments that people have gotten knocked out, flatlined, and thought, are they truly alive? And these are the craziest moments in UFC history to where you truly are able to crown some of the most bad fighters in the UFC right now. I want to talk about knockouts that have happened a long time ago, some that have happened more recently, but just the top 10 best knockouts in UFC history, in my opinion. If you guys enjoy the UFC content, please leave a like, comment, subscribe. That is the best way to help support the channel. And also, while you're down there, hit the post notifications button. That is another great way to always stay updated with the content that I release and help support the channel and watch every single video. Please help us reach 1,000 subscribers. It would be absolutely amazing if you could help do so. And please enjoy the video that is going on today. But no further ado, let's jump into the top 10 best knockouts in UFC history. At number 10, I want to start with Corey Sandhagen versus Frankie Edgar, one of my favorite knockouts of all time. Corey Sandhagen in this fight was doing great. He was already mixing up the range, stopping Frankie Edgar from shooting, and all of a sudden, he had a little exchange to the middle about 30 seconds into the fight, and all of a sudden was acting like he was going back. Frankie was pushing forward. Corey Sandhagen landed an amazing flying knee right to the neck area of Frankie Edgar, causing him to go stiff as a board in one of the sickest knockouts in UFC history. Corey Sandhagen has that ability to be able to understand and compute what his opponent is doing. He then, right after that, or maybe right before, I don't know, I'm not 100% sure, he knocked out Marlon Moraes with a spinning wheel kick to the temple, which was absolutely crazy. But Frankie Edgar is a great fighter. Sadly, later in his career, he took so much damage from people like Chris Gutierrez and Chito Vera, who knocked Frankie out. But this one was by far the worst, by flying knee by Corey Sandhagen right to inside the neck, above the shoulder, right in that area, which getting hit hard enough feels like you got rocked hard, and Frankie Edgar definitely felt it. Corey Sandhagen in at the list, number 10, with one of the sickest knockouts of all time, flying knee on Frankie Edgar. At number 9, I have Mr. Michael Chandler versus Tony Ferguson at UFC 274. Now, this was an absolute disgusting knockout. The first round, Tony Ferguson's favor. Michael Chandler's down on the scorecards. He needs to win the next 2 rounds, or he could get a knockout real quick. Second round starts, immediately front kick right to the bottom of the chin, sends Tony Ferguson out cold immediately. He dropped like a box of rocks right to the octagon floor, and one of the sickest knockouts the UFC has ever seen. Michael Chandler has that power in every single punch that he throws. You see these wars with Justin Gaethje and Dustin Poirier. Michael Chandler has some of the greatest, just most fun fights in UFC history, and this possible fight with Conor McGregor coming up very soon is a very, very, very interesting and fun fight back in the octagon for Michael Chandler. Now, this fight against Tony Ferguson was the start of the end for Tony Ferguson. He looked pretty bad against Charles Oliveira. He looked bad against Beneil Dariush as well. But the fight with Michael Chandler sent Tony Ferguson off the edge. Him not being knocked out before in his career, getting absolutely flatline KO'd by front kick right to the bottom of the jaw. 100% Michael Chandler versus Tony Ferguson. That front kick knockout slots in right here at number 9 on the list, and a very fair spotting in my opinion. At number 8, I have the knockout at UFC 261 in the main event. Kamaru Usman defeating Jorge Masvidal by right hand, setting him slumped to the ground in one of the greatest knockouts in UFC history. Now, Jorge Masvidal, which was really funny, is he was taunting Kamaru Usman right before he got knocked out. He stuck his tongue out at him, saying that you can't hit me. And then Usman hit him with the right hand from Jesus. It was an absolutely amazing KO. Sent Masvidal right to the floor, and he said he had no idea what happened right after he got knocked out. And it was one of the craziest fights I have seen. That was a very entertaining first round. We all know they fought at UFC 251 in Abu Dhabi, which I have never seen that fight, but I heard it was a pretty boring fight. Both of them weren't ready. Masvidal took the fight on short notice, so they had their rematch at 261, and Usman 100% got the best of him in a very clear-cut knockout win with that right hand right down the pipe, connecting with Jorge's chin in one of the most satisfying knockouts in UFC history, automatically flailing to the ground and getting beat with ground and pound from Usman on top, with Usman winning at UFC 261. I think 100% Usman versus Masvidal is 100% worthy of being on the top 10 list, and I think at number 8 is a perfect slot to slide it in at. At number 7, I had to add at least one girls fight in here, and I have Jessica Eye going up against Valentina Shevchenko in an absolutely brutal head kick by Valentina right to the dome of Jessica Eye. This was an absolutely crazy knockout. It sent Eye right to the ground. No need for any follow-up by Shevchenko in a fight that was absolutely insane. Valentina Shevchenko was one of the greatest women's fighters of all time, and this knockout was a perfect thing for her resume. She's been in an absolute war with Alexa Grasso, but this is a little bit past her prime, as she was the perfect flyweight champion in the 125-pound division in the women's UFC part, and she was an absolute savage defeating people throughout her career there before getting into this war with Alexa Grasso as she's gotten a little older. But Valentina Shevchenko's domination over Jessica Eye with one of the craziest knockouts I have ever seen, with that right kick right to the dome, and no need for a follow-up right soon because Valentina is an absolute savage within the octagon. She is the bullet for a reason in there. And 100% Valentina at number 7 is a good spot to put this knockout for its incredible power, incredible technique, and jaw-dropping results. At number 6 is a knockout that really not a lot of people know, or a lot of UFC hardcore fans will know as one of the greatest knockouts of all time. Let me paint the picture real quick. Korean Zombie and Yair Rodriguez are in a 5-round war in Denver, Colorado. They hug each other left with about 12 seconds left and start swinging for the last 10 seconds of the fight. Who do you think's going to win? Korean Zombie's up on the scorecards. Yair Rodriguez needs a knockout in this last 10 seconds. And what does he do? A, punch. B, flying kick, or C, scorpion elbow on Korean Zombie in one of the craziest knockouts I have ever seen in UFC history. He hit an elbow with the back part of his tricep with 1 second left on the clock to ultimately steal that win again away from the Zombie. And one of the greatest knockouts in UFC history. The way that Yair Rodriguez can chain uncharacteristic attacks together with one another is so impressive. He's got such a diverse style and such a very style that's able to be consumed by fans easily because of how chaotic and sporadic he is, and that led to a creation of one of the most impressive knockouts in UFC history, coming with that scorpion elbow with 1 second left in the 5th round of UFC Denver back in 2019. And 100% Yair Rodriguez getting that elbow upon Korean Zombie slots in here at number 6 on the all-time knockouts list. And now at number 5 is the other knockout that happened with 1 second left on the clock. And this one actually happened this year at UFC 300. We got Max Holloway versus Justin Gaethje. This is a little bit different because Max Holloway's up on the scorecards 3-1. I had Justin Gaethje winning the 4th round, but 5th round, 10 seconds left. Max Holloway points down to the ground. He says, "Come here, buddy. We're going to start swinging." And what do inside the octagon? They start swinging. And all of a sudden, Max rips to the body once, rips to the body twice, and then goes to the head for the flatline KO on the highlight himself, Justin Gaethje. One of the most dramatic knockout finishes in UFC history. That might have been the greatest UFC knockout I've ever seen in my life with my own eyes watching the event. Now, the only reason it's not that higher is I have some pretty spectacular knockouts above it that have a little bit more implications behind them, but as one of the most fun fights you could ever watch, that you could ever introduce a fan who has never watched a fight in the UFC, Justin Gaethje versus Max Holloway has everything you could want. A 5-round war, an incredible knockout, and 2 respectable opponents going up against one another. 100%. This knockout could even be higher on this list, but I chose to put it at number 5 because I feel like the knockouts that are above it are a little bit more impressive because of the circumstances or are just flat out better. But 100% Holloway versus Gaethje is knockout number 5 on my top 10 knockouts in the UFC right now. At number 4, greatest knockout of all time, we go to UFC 278, where it was into the 5th round in Mr. Leon Edwards' corner, where his coach is telling him, "Leon, you got to go get the knockout. You got to get a fight. You got to get a win. You're getting dragged around right now. You're losing the fight." And what does Leon Edwards do? He takes his time, sets up a shot, and with 1 minute left in the fight, head kick KO Kamaru Usman, taking the welterweight title away from one of the greatest welterweights of all time, sending him down to the ground in one of the most impressive knockouts of all time. With this being championship on the line, championship or bust, Leon Edwards probably not getting an opportunity anytime soon. He lost to Usman in the first fight. In the second fight, he's most likely going to lose, but he pulls it out of the hat from nowhere with one of the greatest left kicks that I have ever seen. What was incredible was he showed the left hand prior. He left hand, Usman slipped it perfectly to the outside, but right then was a head kick right under the neck, which knocked Usman out cold. Usman is one of my favorite fighters. His title reign was so exciting, but seeing him get knocked down in that fashion, you got to admit, was super, super impressive by Leon Edwards. And with the standards on the line of gold or bust for Mr. Edwards, it was incredible to see him go and get that win. 100% number 4 of all time, Leon Edwards over Kamaru Usman at UFC 278 in Salt Lake City, Utah. For number 3 greatest knockout in the list, we head all the way back to UFC 239 on July 6, 2019, where we get one of the most incredible knockouts in UFC history. It was Jorge Masvidal versus Ben Askren, and Jorge needed 5 seconds to get the knockout. What did he do? Stood on the cage with his signature hands behind his back prior to this fight happening, and went in flying knee on Askren, who shot for a takedown 2 seconds into the fight, absolutely destroying him with that flying knee. One of the most impressive performances I have ever seen. Jorge Masvidal is such a fun fighter. I know later in his career he started losing some fights. He lost to Colby Covington at UFC 272, lost to Gilbert Burns at UFC 287, but Jorge Masvidal was an absolute monster in his career in his younger days in the UFC, and he had some of the most incredible knockouts, especially this one against Ben Askren. It was an incredible KO where he hit him with the flying knee from nowhere. And truly, Jorge Masvidal is one of those fighters that nowhere and every time he fought, it was exciting. And I love watching this man knock people out. Masvidal over Askren with that flying knee is 100% slotted in at my number 3 spot. At number 2, greatest knockouts of all time, we have Conor McGregor 13 seconds over Jose Aldo, and this was one of the most impressive performances because Conor McGregor was talking about of how he was the king of Rio, of how he was doing everything to win the belt. He was taking all of Aldo's fans and about he was actually the king. And what did he do? Aldo was so nervous in that fight. He made one mistake 13 seconds into that fight, and Conor landed that pull back right hand right down the pipe to win the belt in one of the most incredible knockouts in UFC history. To do it over a world-class opponent in Jose Aldo was impressive, but to then do it in 13 seconds is one of the most embarrassing ways to lose a fight. People forget that Conor McGregor in his prime was one of the most accurate strikers of all time. We all know him recently as just drinking and partying and losing fights to Dustin Poirier, breaking his leg. But Conor McGregor in that Eddie Alvarez, Jose Aldo era had some of the greatest fights and greatest combinations and one of the greatest knockouts in UFC history over Aldo at the UFC event with them two who went on a world tour. They did so many different things. But Aldo got absolutely wrecked by Conor McGregor in his most impressive performance, in my opinion, knocking out the featherweight GOAT in 13 seconds with that right hand down the pipe to win featherweight gold. And that is why McGregor knocking out Aldo in 13 seconds is my number 2 greatest knockout in UFC history. At number 1, I wanted to do a knockout that had a little bit of a less, it wasn't as big, it wasn't as well known, but still an incredible just masterclass of MMA ability. And there was one that stuck out to me, and this was the one that I remember not being an MMA fan. Truly, I watched some fights, but I saw this knockout, and it blew up the internet, even though it wasn't a massive fight. First, my brain leads me to Mr. Joaquin Buckley over Impa Kasanganay, where he had one of the most impressive KOs that you've ever seen. If you have ever seen this KO, you know what I'm talking about. If you have not watched it, go see it for yourself. It is disgusting. Joaquin Buckley threw a round kick. Impa caught it right on his chest, held his leg up, and what did Buckley do? Hit that old spinning jump reverse sidekick to the face in one of the most impressive knockouts in UFC history. Joaquin Buckley has that style to him. He's usually a heavy power puncher. He's got some good kicks behind him. He's not really known for the Taekwondo, but he whipped the Taekwondo ninja move out of nowhere and absolutely blew up Impa's face with that reverse sidekick right to the noggin. knocking him out cold in one of the most impressive knockouts in UFC history. Now, I wanted to put this at number 1 because I thought that the skill involved in MMA just truly put it above a lot of these other ones. Getting caught right there and not panicking to then automatically fly into a reverse sidekick is some just chaining together move that I would never think to do. And Buckley deserves his flowers for being number 1 on my list of greatest UFC knockouts of all time. And truly, I think that this is a once-in-a-lifetime knockout and one of the best knockouts in UFC history that will age like fine wine as the UFC grows older. Thank you guys so much for watching this episode of Fights is MMA, and please leave a comment down below if you enjoy this ranking of the greatest knockouts of all time. I'll do a quick recap real quick. I got Corey Sandhagen's flying knee over Frankie Edgar. I got Michael Chandler's front kick over Tony Ferguson. I got Kamaru Usman's right hand right down the pipe to Jorge Masvidal. I got Shevchenko's right head kick against Jessica Eye. I got Yair Rodriguez's scorpion elbow on Korean Zombie. I got Max Holloway's 1 second buzzer beater versus Justin Gaethje at UFC 300. I got Leon Edwards' left head kick against Kamaru Usman at UFC 278. I got Jorge Masvidal's flying knee on Ben Askren, and I got Conor McGregor's 13-second knockout over Jose Aldo. And last but not least, Joaquin Buckley's spinning back kick from Impa on the dome. 100% these are the most impressive knockouts in UFC history, and if you have not gone and seen any of these, I would highly recommend going and watching every single one of these knockouts. They are some of the greatest moments in UFC history, truly bringing fans together in some of the most destructive yet beautiful mixed martial arts the sport has ever seen. If you guys enjoy the UFC content, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. And if you enjoy this video, please subscribe and like the video. It is so amazing to show your support upon each video and to show support about the channel. While you're down there, turn on the post notifications button just so you guys are always notified when UFC content like this releases and more content like shorts and other videos release. But thank you guys so much for watching this episode of Fight Season MMA, and I will catch you guys very soon with more UFC content and news.